Hello, and welcome to our very first Sunnyview School podcast with no name. My name is Albert Chavarría. I'll be your host, not because I'm any good, but because there's nobody else to do this. Joining me today are three incredible people. Let's start with the students.
I'm Gabe Chavarría, year 13, prefect.
Prefect, all right. And young lady, you are?
Every year 13 is a prefect. Thank you. I'm here. I'm a year 13 student and a prefect.
Excellent. And
hello, I'm Mr. McKean. I'm not a prefect, but I'm English and drama coordinator. Excellent.
So the idea here is that Mr. McKean kind of mediates, joins in the conversation, keeps it civil, doesn't, make sure that nobody argues. And actually, behind Mr. McKean, we have the audience. The audience is Niels. Niels, is it?
Yes.
Yes. Niels, Elsa, and Mar. Mar and Elsa are the organizers of all this. They will be joining us in a future podcast. And behind me, we have the technical backup. Erika. Hi, Erika. And Jess. Right, so let's get started. Today's podcast, because it's the first one, we've chosen a juicy subject. That subject is mobile phones. We know they're not allowed in schools, so we're not going to debate whether they should be or not, because we know they're not. We're just going to give our opinion on what we think. Basically, that's what opinion is, right? First of all, what do you guys think? Are you guys for or against mobile phones being in school allowed?
I think they should be allowed. Obviously, with mediation, depending on the years, of course. I think, especially at our age, we should be trusted with mobile phones.
How old are you?
I'm 17, turning 18.
Right on. Yeah, what's your opinion?
I believe they should be allowed in school, but obviously to a certain extent. There should be an age range for which it should be allowed, but with certain regulations. But in my opinion, below the GCSE level, it should not be allowed unless it's entirely necessary.
That's very specific. Mr. McKean.
I agree with here. I think that we can't stop the fact that mobile phones are everywhere and everyone can have access to them. But I think there needs to be much stricter regulations. I know that in France, they're completely banned from schools. And in the UK, they're moving to that measure. Particularly with younger students, the access that they can have to certain content. And, for those particular comments where they say, oh, I saw something, this is true, I saw it on TikTok. Well, I can put a dance on TikTok. That doesn't make it great. So I think there definitely needs to be more regulation with it, but it's something we can't avoid.
Right, so we all agree. So that's a short argument, which is good. Well, we all agree, but with nuances, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm the oldest person here, so I'm going to have my little say. My little say is that I agree with you. I think mobile phones should not be taken away from the youth. I'm also the IT manager here at school, so I have a very, very distinct opinion about it, because I realized two things. First of all, that you guys were born with devices in your hands. For us adults, is taking something away that we never had. So it's easy, just take it away. You guys were born with it. You can't take something away from, that you were born with. Second, we've created them. My generation created these devices, and it's just not fair that we should suddenly just, give them to you and then take them away. But the connotations, as far as I'm concerned, are much bigger than that, because education is based on knowledge, and the way we teach knowledge does not match at all with having a mobile device. That knowledge is already in your hand, and us adults don't know how to deal with that. What do you have to say to that?
Sorry to interject, but do you both think that having a mobile phone has helped your education? Do you think that it's been a benefit to, you're in your final year now in year 13, right? When did you first get your first phone?
Well, I started off with a Nokia at 10 years old.
Right.
And then progressed to the latest iPhone being an iPhone 4 or an iPod when I was, I think, 11.
Right.
So I would say that that's, I guess, an average time to be,
Yeah.
like in this generation, to be introduced to a phone.
Yeah.
But in terms of education, there have been both limitations and, I guess, benefits to it, being that lately with the use of AI and the use of, the easy access to the internet, education becomes more limited because we expand less with our minds and more with what we can find on Google.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Would you agree?
Yeah, obviously AI, especially lately, has become a big topic and has been increasing exponentially, I would say.
Yeah.
Especially the past few months. I remember a few months ago, ChatGPT was introduced and it was like, whoa, what's this? And now there's AI that's creating songs.
Okay.
With voices of other.
See, for me as a teacher, I think I'm more worried about social media and the effects it can have on you and that access you have at school, right? You know, there's always that worry that something will get posted or you'll look at something or find something. And you know what that's like. If there's a kind of a rumour or something going around the school, it's that will take 24 hours?
Can I interject right there?
Yeah.
Right, so you're talking about social media being used in schools by the students. But what if it wasn't? I mean, what we're trying to do is educate our students not to use them responsibly, or are we trying to do that, right? Which is the big, for me, it's the big question, whether we're actually educating our students and our children to use their mobile phones respectfully and responsibly. And there's no reason why you should be on social media while you're in a class, right? You guys don't talk amongst each other when you're in class. You don't, and if you do, you get told off or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Why would a device with social media in it affect the teacher's education in class? That's my question.
Well, I suppose, especially our generation is just so used to using social media and constantly being on it.
Okay.
I feel like once you get your phone, it's just the basic, I guess, response that you do.
Okay,
so you're on your phone and you go straight to Instagram or TikTok or
right. So question,
whatever.
Do you guys have your mobile phones on you right now?
I do, yes.
Are you using them right now?
Not right now.
You're not on social media?
No.
Anybody else in the room using their social media phone right now? You're not recording it?
No.
Right. Are you guys listening to the podcast?
Yeah.
Are you paying attention?
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, the thing is, I'm not a teacher, so I find it really hard to see it from a teacher's perspective, but I see it from an outsider's view. And for me, it's crystal clear, right? There's a use for a mobile phone in class, and it's absolutely incredible. So if you're learning math, the teacher's trying to show you whatever, the quadratic equation or whatever, that's already there. You already have it, right? So, what's the square root of 356? It'll take you 10 minutes to calculate it. It'll take me 30 seconds to figure it out. So we got that information. Move on to what you can actually do with that information, as opposed to learning how to figure out that information, right? That's my stance in everything I do. As an IT manager, if I have to figure something out, I'll get my AI or my ChatGPT or my Google out. I'll figure it out, and I'll learn it by doing what I just learned. And that's the key, doing what I just learned. Sometimes you can, fair enough, Sometimes you need to know the empirical values of something, but not always.
I don't know. I think it's interesting that from, obviously we have that access to it. I think from a teacher's perspective, I worry that the mobile phone, apart from social media too, but in that sense, having so much access all the time, are we 100% connected all the time? Having a mobile phone, does that take away a student's autonomy, being able to think for themselves? Because, for example, I do the same, outside of school, if I need to know the answer to a question, or, I teach French this year, sometimes if I forget what something means, I can just check on a dictionary on my phone, right?
But you're a teacher, you're supposed to know it all.
I know, that's one of the biggest things. I'm afraid I don't know everything, I'm afraid.
Exactly.
To say. But I worry that having a mobile phone, I'm not teaching the value of being able to do things on your own autonomously. And I don't know whether you guys feel that you know, in the classroom, those are skills that you are getting nowadays, or whether now, as technology keeps developing, is that something that you feel is lost?
Well, I think one of the main effects of social media and the use of phones in school is the lack of an attention span, because the constant stimulation with all the material that we see on our phones, especially on social media, it creates like a dopamine rush, and we need more in our brains to match up to the level we would have had without the phone. So in class, I think that would have a very negative effect, because we wouldn't be able to concentrate on what we're learning, and that would have a big impact, in my opinion.
Well, answering what you're saying about the not being autonomous, I feel like it's the same thing as, for example, in the STEM subjects, we have the formula booklet, because, I mean, to be honest, it's quite pointless us memorizing all of those formulas if we can just look them up.
I had to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now we've moved past that. I feel
Wow.
And that's why I sucked at math, because of all those formulas.
Yeah.
It killed me.
That's
I feel like it's obviously not exactly the same thing, but it's a similar situation where it's not necessarily knowing the information, but knowing how to apply it.
Yeah.
Which is what I think we need to focus on nowadays.
Right.
I think in the background, Mario, you wanted to say something before?
Yeah, can you hear me?
No, come a little bit closer. Mar is our deputy head prefect.
Okay, I guess I'll share with you. It was before about the whole teaching situation with the phones. I think that teachers, I mean, I don't know if I want to be a teacher yet, but I'm thinking about it, and I honestly think that traditions are very important in the classroom. Like, for example, reading a book in English Lit, you need to read that book, and I know that people don't do that. They just go online, they watch videos, and they look at summaries. I think you're cheating yourself. I think it's even disrespectful. So I think that's a really big
Makes sense.
part about the phone, and having all that information in front of you. That feels like you're cheating yourself out of an education, and you're inherently disrespecting your teacher by not making the most of those opportunities that you're being given.
Right, so there you're talking about getting the basis of how to learn, right? Which I think is really, really important, right? So you can't, he was talking about attention span. If you don't learn how to concentrate for more than 5 minutes in a row, you're never going to be able to learn, right? And I think you're totally right there. I'm not sure where respect or disrespect comes into it. Probably because those teachers have spent a lot of hours trying to learn how to teach you guys with old-fashioned techniques. Maybe, I'm not sure. What do you think, Mr. McKean? You're a young
Thank you.
university student not so many years ago.
I think, as a teacher, we're always looking to continue learning, right? To be the best teacher, you're always kind to look to hone your craft. This is not something that when you've got your teaching qualification, this is something you always need to. And you need to look at these new technologies that are coming in and how to apply them in the classroom. Like for me, I test with some of my groups kind of technology and how this can be, used properly in the classroom. I think to support Mar's point and to kind of go there, again, it's this worry that having the mobile phone there, it'll be used as a crutch, right? So, for example, if I give a class a text and they immediately will just get out there, if they, I don't want them to think, okay, well, I have my phone, so I'll just get out my phone and I'll find out about this text or I'll find out about this. I want them to be able to do it themselves. I want them to be able to think, okay, I know this word or I can see this context. And I think those are skills that are translatable into the workplace or they're translatable into real life, And I don't want basically, a student to be using their mobile phone essentially as a way of kind of, as a form of dependency.
Okay, so going back to Mars' argument, and this I'm biased because I know the answer already.
Yeah.
And going back to our students, Gabe, do you like reading?
Not particularly. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna say no.
Right. Was the use of devices, mobile phones, influential in that, or you just never liked reading?
I would probably say it is influential in that, the
Right,
use of
so
devices and stuff.
Do you think your parents were at fault with that? Let's bring parents into it.
So put me under the spotlight right in front of my father.
Gabe's my son.
No.
Speak freely, child.
Big revelations here.
Wait, can you repeat the question?
Well, is the fact that you don't like reading brought about by your use of devices, having constant access to devices at home, being an IT manager's son and having TVs, computers, and all sorts at home?
I mean, I think I would say yes, because when I was younger, I was like, oof, I'm not going to read, I'm going to go on the Xbox and play whatever, Call of Duty or Ghost Recon or whatever.
Damn.
But I don't think it's like fault of your own, because you were always trying to get me to read.
Thank you. Oh my God. You'd never say that.
You were always telling me to read. You were giving me the Catcher in the Rye, for example.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I remember you had that in your bag for like a year. And you never once did you touch it.
I read
Yeah,
two
pages.
chapters. Two chapters.
Right. So it's not a lack of trying.
No.
Right. Yeah. Do you like reading?
I do like reading.
You like
yes.
reading, and yet you've had a mobile phone since you were 10.
Yes.
Right. So where's the middle ground there, Mara?
well,
what do you have to say to that?
I do now kind of realize that, I read more as a child mostly, I would say, because of we had a lot more free time and I was able to read more, books at my level, and that at that point in time, I really enjoyed reading them. And now with the phones and with English literature, I find myself reading books that I'm assigned more at school, because I find that I might be wasting my time reading leisurely. Obviously, that's wrong, but I just feel guilty not spending that time for schoolwork.
Yeah.
So I guess the phone...
And that's what we're up against, right? Like, it's trying to find that balance. And how am I supposed to win against a mobile phone that's flashy and you can access videos and it's visual and it makes fun noises? And for me, like, I've always loved books. I have a mobile phone. I'm a massive nerd too outside of school. I have a PlayStation. I have a Switch. So, like, this is a world I'm familiar with too. But again, I'm trying to find that balance and almost trying to find ways of almost, okay, if you can't beat them, join them. So using kind of applications to get students involved with books like Goodreads, for example, which, recording, what you've been reading, or kind of even book talk. Most of the biggest blockbusters in the last couple of years in the literacy or literary world, and also film, if you can. But still, if people are reading it, it doesn't I'm not going to sit here and be like, I read Shakespeare every day, because I don't. I love murder mystery and crime and gritty stuff, right? So if you're able to, it's trying to find a way of using the mobile phone, to get inspired to read. Think of the Heartstopper series that came through from Book Talk, all the Colleen Hoover books. You might have your own opinion on her as a writer, but she became popular through Book Talk and through mobile phones. So I think we need to find a way to join them.
Elsa, come closer. Elsa wants to say something.
No, I was just going to say, because we've spoken, or you guys have been speaking a lot about phones in the classroom, but I was just wondering what your thoughts are on phones during break times at school too, because obviously I think that socializing and the whole people skills, that's a part of education that we might be overlooking, right? And so I'm just curious about what you think about the effect of phones during breaks and this social time.
Yeah, it's a good problem.
Do you talk to each other at break time? Or are you just, I don't know, like, I come and see you guys sometimes and I just imagine, or there have been a couple of times where I've come over and you guys have been like, some people are just kind of, it's so easy to have your phone out, right? Do you guys have your phone there at break, or are you talking to each other? Like,
Do you want to say it?
Sure. Well, it depends on the day, I guess. Sometimes we might be tired, we'll be on our phones, but we come across a funny TikTok and we show it to our friends, laugh about it. But other times, we may be more energetic and leave the phones to the side. Like, with my friends, I've had some break times where we don't pick up our phones and we just talk about some interesting topic, spill some gossip, the usual.
Are you guys allowed to have your phones during break time? Or are you
Yes.
blatantly breaking the rules and admitting it right now?
We are allowed, we are.
No, we're allowed. Okay.
Well,
All right.
depending on what day you ask Miss Mansell, but most of the time we are allowed, yeah.
yes.
Who's Miss Mansell?
Miss Mansell is the Key Stage 5 coordinator.
Great woman.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we pretty much all agree that this is a. So you'll actually agree towards the idea of having it regulated, right? Or is it? Or is it? Don't you agree that it's more of a matter of education? I mean, do you think it should be pushed on you when to use them and when not to use them, or do you organically should know when to use a phone? I mean, this is like interrupting somebody when they're talking, right? There's a time to do it. Most of the time you shouldn't, right? Swearing, sometimes you can, sometimes you can. I mean, you always can, but sometimes you shouldn't, right? Yeah. So what do you guys think? Regulation or should it be education?
I think regulation may be the best way to go about it with this generation, especially getting older. The regulation should be slightly lifted or modified, but with the younger ages, it really depends because, again, knowing my generation, being defiant is a very big part of what we are, and like the rejection of authority, and so being put into strict rules in a place where we cannot do something which we usually would, it would cause a lot of people to rebel, and that may have the opposite effect of what would be wanted. So I think the usage of mobile phones with regulations and lifting those gradually as we progress through the years might be the best option.
That's a good one. I like that. Yeah. Gabe?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think they go hand in hand, regulation and education. Talking about using swear words and stuff like that. We're taught not to use them since the beginning. Since we're very young, like year 2, year 3, we're told we can't use those words in the classroom or in school, which then educates you to not use them or to know when to use them, I suppose. So I feel like this could be used with the mobile phones. You regulate them at a younger age, which educates the children to know when to use them and when not to use them.
Okay. Yeah, you said something quite interesting before. You said that you agree to the use of mobile phones in school, but only from a certain age, and you specifically mentioned the GCSE years. Why?
Well, I think that's the time where we progress into a more autonomous state, and it teaches us to further ourselves into the world. And so starting there might give a more, balanced period until the point where we're in year 13, where we should be given comparatively more freedom as compared to our previous years. So in my opinion, it's just a good place to start because it's where we start more independent studies. Okay. And so that should go hand in hand with our independence in the world.
Well, and yet it's quite ironical that all those GCSE students actually get given a device the very moment they come into Key Stage 3. From the age of 11 years old, we ourselves, this school gives them a device, gives them a laptop so that they can use. Whereas you guys don't. You're allowed to bring one in if you want, but you don't actually get given one by the school to use, right?
Yeah.
Just because you don't happen to be the age group. So are mobile phones different to laptops? Anyway, well, before you answer that, Mar had something to say, please.
But I also think that the GCSE years are really crucial to development and people skills, like he had mentioned before. So I look back at GCSE, I was 2 years ago, and I think that not having a mobile phone was really important in making friends, in talking, and I think that it would be a real shame if these kids were kind of that opportunity was taken away from them because of the mobile phones. Because I know there are people who talk with their friends regardless, and then there are people who don't. And, during that period, that could really determine whether or not you're the person who will speak to someone new, or if you're just going to stay, within what you know and just stay on your phone. So I don't agree with the GCSE age. I think it should only be A-level. Right,
and what's your thought on interactivity, personal interaction between people? Do you think that's soon going to be obsolete? Because really, as we all proved in lockdown, it's really easy to get along with people without having to actually see them.
I don't think so. I think that the people skills are kind of being undervalued. I think people don't realize how important it is for small talk, even holding eye contact.
Right, because
for some people is difficult.
Because we're humans. Because we're humans. We're humans, and we're social animals, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So wouldn't you argue that comes naturally anyway, without having to be taught? Whereas devices. Same as devices. You guys are born, not even you guys, but the people that are GCSE now really were born with a device in their hand.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say it's natural. Like, I would say that the use of devices is unnatural. It's, as we would say in lit, it's dystopian, because the fact that we can just talk with someone without having to see their face is, like, kind of beyond me when you actually, like, think about it. So I think that it goes against nature.
I tell you what, that's a godsend to me, because I'm the most unsociable guy you've ever seen in your life. And if I can just chat and not talk, it's... Thank you. One of the cameras just stopped. Anyway, so I think that's probably that's a debate maybe for another podcast. But Mr. McKean, what are you? Are you a sociable animal? Are you a social animal? Do you like chatting? Do you like not chatting? Do you like talking, or do you like?
Although potentially, at school I present kind of myself trying to be, effusive and talking to people outside of school, being at school all the time, I get out and my social battery is depleted. So having a mobile phone, and I understand the students in that sense because I can relate to them, the use of mobile phone. I hate when people call me, don't call me on the phone. I hate holding eye contact with people.
Do you answer when they call you? Because I never do.
No, I don't. I'm like, text me. Right, but I've always put that down to me being better at writing than speaking. So, but that's really just an excuse, and I think obviously my mobile phone has facilitated me and kind of has helped me in that sense, and I've had to be careful and put boundaries, and kind of particularly during lockdown, you'd have to put boundaries and seeing people's faces and talking to people, so I understand the students from that perspective. Like, I understand why they would just kind of resort to their mobile phone, and maybe not so much we need to regulate. I think maybe more putting boundaries and limits, because the language is important, right? Because regulation sounds horrible and it sounds like, no, you must not do it. And if you tell a 16-year-old no, that's like the worst thing in the world, right? So
not just a 16-year-old. I think control.
Yeah.
Every action has a reaction, right? So if you try to control something, the immediate action is to fight it.
Right, of course. Yeah. So I think more boundaries and limits and kind of being, and setting good examples, right? So, yeah, I can see, and I completely understand why there is, this use of mobile phones and why these questions come up. I think we just have to kind of evolve with it and accept,
Cool. Well, one final thought before we leave, or one final question. Addiction, right? There's a lot of talk about in fact, it's one of the biggest arguments towards the regulation and the banning of mobile phones and devices in young people is the addiction it creates. Do you guys know anybody that's actually addicted to their phone?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't really pay attention to it.
No names, please. No names. Let's be civil here. Right. And is it a real addiction? Can they not live without it? Do they suffer in class when they're not allowed to have it, and they're itching to have it, and they just turn into a different person? They don't pay attention in class because they don't have their devices. Is it that kind of addiction? Because I've never actually met anybody, so I'm curious. What does a mobile addict look like?
It's strange.
You can see you are.
It's strange, I think, because they're not. I think on one level they're not being truthful to themselves or to the people that they're talking to, because at face value you would never know, but then they're dealing with all their social activity through a mobile phone. Right. So again, it becomes that kind of crutch, and you see that, and I think, as the students have mentioned before, those social skills have gone, and you think, oh, if I took this mobile phone away, or for whatever reason, imagine you just drop it down the toilet, which has happened to people, it does, right? What would they do? And there are some people that would, or their kind of access, I'll find out information, or I'll talk to someone, or I'll play a game or whatever like that. They won't. Again, this idea they can't think for themselves, what they present to the world is completely different to their online presence.
Right, and the way we should approach the education and regulation of the mobile phones with those people should be different, just like a real addict. Do you think they should be treated differently?
I don't think treated differently is the right way necessarily. I think helping them and being part of the change and making sure that it's as positive as possible. I think because I don't think they should be singled out, but I think that we should all be there to support them in the best way that we can and bring back the human element to it.
Okay. Well, finally, the final question now. Yes or no? Gabe, can you live without your phone?
No.
Hia, can you live without your phone?
I could learn to. But
You can learn to. Are you willing to learn?
I would like to learn.
Right. Mr. McKean?
I want to say no because I think that's the right thing to say, and it'll make me look better.
But you can't.
I can't. I genuinely can't.
Right. I can't either. I hate the thing, but I can't live without it.
Yeah.
Because it's a constant source of information for me. And if I don't have that, I'm a really stupid guy. If I don't have that, I'm done. I really am. I look really intelligent because I always have a phone on me.
I would say for you isn't necessarily a phone. I think for you it's just a device in general because
Devices.
I frequently hear you saying, "Where's my phone?" when you're walking around the house, or you'll go out walk the dogs and I'll call you and I hear your ringtone in your room.
Yeah. But it's true. But I need that device because I'm constantly studying. It's what I do. There's always new things coming out. There's always new technology. There's always new techniques, and I have to study all the time. If I didn't have a device or my phone, I would be absolutely lost. All right, I think we're done. It's been quite a long one. So thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank
Mr.
you for
McKean.
having us.
Thank you for having me.
Hia, Gabe,
Thank you very much.
you guys are the best.
I know.
Audience,
We know.
Niels, it was good to see you, even though we didn't hear you. Elsa and Mark. And thank you very much for coming to our podcast called XXX or whatever. And we'll see. Well, it's gonna be on a little sign. We got to come up with a name, right?
I think we'll leave it blank.
Sunny views.
Sunny views.
Anyway, the Sunny Views. Okay, Sunny Views. The
Sunny Views.
Sunny Views. Perfect. Well, thank you very much for coming to our podcast, Sunny Views, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, that was fun.
How was that? Wasn't bad, no?
That was really good fun.
It was good.